Good evening. I'm Pam Lanham from the Hinsdalean, and we're here this evening for our second candidates night, this election cycle, with our two candidates for the District 181 board. I have a couple of comments to make before we begin. I'd like to explain the format for this evening's proceedings. Each of the candidates will have the opportunity to make a 2-minute opening statement. Then I will ask each candidate the same 6 questions. They will have 90 seconds to answer each question, and we will alternate who goes first, starting in alphabetical order with the opening statement. Candidates then will have an opportunity to make a 1-minute closing statement. Our questions were shaped by ones submitted by readers, by our coverage of board meetings, and by our interviews with candidates. So we will begin with our opening statements, starting with Christine Danhausen-Brunn.
Hi. First, I want to say thank you to the Hinsdalean for hosting this the candidates night for D181. My name is Christine Danhausen-Brunn. I am a 20-year resident of Hinsdale, wife and a mother of 6 children. I have had children in D181. This is my 18th year, and I have, I believe, 3 more to go. My children range in age from 10 to 22 years old. All have graduated from or are currently students in D181. My 2 oldest, Jacob and Emma, are graduates of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Rachel is a junior at University of Illinois. Aiden is a senior at Hinsdale Central. Greta's in 7th grade, and Ava is in 5th grade at Madison. I have a bachelor's of arts in psychology from the University of Chicago, a master's in public health from the University of Illinois at Chicago. I've also done some post-bac work at Loyola. My professional work experience includes more than 10 years in public health and healthcare research, working at Laura Beta University of Chicago Research and Policy Center, the Chicago Project for Violence Prevention, which is now known as Cure Violence, and the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health and Department of Mental Hygiene. I've spent 2 decades volunteering for various, primarily things related to kids, but other healthcare related work too. I've done volunteer work for D181, District 86, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. I've been leaders in both of those for a decade each probably. I've volunteered with Advocate Aurora Children's Hospital, Advocate Christ Medical Center, and I've served on the board of Queen of Peace High School. 4 years on the executive committee, 6 years total, and 1 year as board president.
Thank you. And next we'll go to Margie Kleber.
Hi, I'm Margie Kleber, and I am a 30-year resident of the village of Hinsdale. I have a Bachelor of Arts in English Literature from Loyola, and I have served on numerous boards in the committee throughout my 30 years, or in the community, I'm sorry, throughout my 30 years here in Hinsdale, including Union Church of Hinsdale Early Childhood Parent Program, the Lane School PTO committee. I was on the committee to approve the CHMS referendum, as well as all the other the 7 elementary school renovations in the 1990s. I am currently on the D181 Board of Education. I've served as the Vice President, Secretary, Facilities Chairman, and I'm currently the President. I have 4 children, and they are all grown and flown. Alex is, all of them are proud graduates of the Lane School, Clarendon Hills Middle School, and Hinsdale Central High School. And they are all working and productive members of society, thankfully. I have been asked by many, why are you running? Why are you doing this to yourself? And my answer is because A, people did it for me. And when my children were in school and they received a wonderful foundation, some other community members volunteered their time and service, and they did it for me. And because of that, my children received a an outstanding education, and now it's my time to give back. I also believe that my job's not done. We accomplished a lot in my 4 years, and I'm very proud of the work that we've done, but there's still more to do. And I feel like that continuity and experience matter now more than ever, because we're still in the midst of a pandemic, and we have a school to reopen safely. And I want to make sure we do that.
Thank you. Our first question, which will go to Margie, is based on the most current information, would you support the return to full-time in-person instruction to open the 2021-2022 school year? If not, what would you recommend? And give me just a second while I adjust the timer.
So what, can I ask a question? Can you read that based on, so that's in the fall?
Sure, yes. Based on the most current information,
correct?
This fall, would you support a return to in-time, full-person instruction? And if not, what would you recommend? And give me just 1 second to adjust the timer. And we will be ready to begin. Go ahead.
Well, I think that's a difficult question to answer, because the data changes every day. It's hard to know what variants will be out in the fall. It's hard to know how many people will be vaccinated. It's hard to know what our vaccine supply will be so that people can be vaccinated. So that's, I think it's difficult to say right now what we should do in 6 months. And I'm hopeful that we will have adequate supply of vaccine and that people will continue to get vaccinated and our numbers will go up. I'm hopeful that there will not be any variants that take hold and spread. And I am hopeful that our families will remain safe and smart and continue to do the mitigation strategies that have been put forth by the CDC. And I think if we can do that, then we will be safe, and it will be prudent and to open. But I'm hesitant to say today, yes, absolutely, because we just don't know what's coming.
Thank you. And next we will go to Christine.
Without a doubt, this has been a challenging year around the world, and data changes daily. D181 has been successful this year, having students in school all year without having outbreaks and without having to revert to full remote. I believe that by fall, if there are no variants, that we should be able to return to school with mitigations, most likely masking and social distancing. Hopeful that maybe we can reduce social distancing, but I don't know. The key factor will be variants, but right now I think the school needs and the district needs to plan to go back into school with multiple layers of mitigation, which is what they're doing right now to try and open full time. Masking, social distancing, being as safe as possible in the most risky situations, which is unmasked at lunch, so maintaining 6 feet when we can there. In the classrooms, I recognize that we are a massive district, a massive number of buildings, and so trying to keep as much distance as we can in the classroom, but also knowing that hospitals have been able to keep physicians safe with the right amount of PPE and distancing as much as possible. So I believe that we can open in the fall with the right mitigations.
Thank you. Our second question, which will go to Christine to start, is how should the district address any educational, social, and emotional issues students might face due to COVID when they return to school full-time?
I think the district needs to be prepared to allocate additional resources, certainly for additional staff and possibly for being creative about how they think about space. I've attended and watched some of the academic success committee meetings, and data is showing that our youngest learners in kindergarten, first and second grade likely have the biggest gaps from year over year. And it's hard to gain your phonemic awareness when you're wearing a mask and when you're not having a teacher who's able to read to you and be right next to you and show you where each word is, things like that. So we may need to do additional interventions and have that prepared for especially for our youngest learners. Additionally, we need to drill down into the data from MAP testing to find out what other learners have gaps and provide the resources to help them make up those gaps. Some kids are doing great in remote and some kids are doing great in hybrid. Other kids are struggling in both of those. And so we just need to figure out who's struggling and where, what resources they need. Is it in math? Is it in reading? Do we need additional interventionists? So that's where I think we need to look, is additional staff to help out.
Thank you. And now we will go to Margie.
Can you repeat the question, Pam?
Sure. How should the district address any educational, social, and emotional gaps that students might be facing due to COVID when they return to school full-time?
When students return to school full-time, I believe we're going to have some unanticipated scenarios. One is, I think that the pandemic has really increased the anxiety of our children. And I think it's hard sometimes to know how that's going to play out and what triggers there will be. So I definitely think that we will need to increase probably our social workers, and we will have to train our do some additional training with our teachers so that they understand what to look for in students who might be suffering from anxiety or and just fear. I've heard stories of children saying that they don't want to kill their friends and they're afraid to go to school, and children shouldn't feel that way. And so we have to be prepared for that. Academically, we also have to have some tutors in place. And I think that our children are going to need some additional resources in some of the core courses, literacy and math. There will be some kids who lag, and we need to be able to have the data so we know where those kids are. Unfortunately, that might mean some assessments. I know people don't love testing, but that's really the only way that we'll have the data so that we know where our kids are academically and who's lagging and who's not.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Margie. How do you think the district is positioned financially to face the next 2 to 3 years?
I think we've been incredibly blessed to have the last few boards and CSBO who have been really good stewards of taxpayer dollars. We are in a great financial position. We have a fund balance that will allow us to build an administrative center and thereby reduce our rent costs. So our actual office space will be significantly lower over the course of a number of years. And also increase some of our programs for kids. We're definitely looking at full-day kindergarten and definitely looking at increasing our world language offerings. So I think to have those resources, at the ready puts us in a great position as a district to really expand on some of those learning opportunities and take care of some of our facility needs as well.
Thank you. And same question now to Christine.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. How do you think the district is positioned financially to face the next 2 to 3 years?
The district has been maximizing what it can get in leveraging ability on the table from tax dollars for the last couple of years. And now they've voted to abate some of that money. And I think the board maybe should have waited to abate that to see what mitigations we need to do and what resources we're going to need to provide to make up academic gaps for students and social and emotional gaps. The board has talked about all-day kindergarten, but has not approved that as of yet, as well as adding on additional world languages. And so both of those will require additional staff, but also all-day kindergarten will require additional space. And so the board is going to have to think through financially, where do we get that space, and how, or do we need to get space outside of the district? Looking forward regarding the district finances, we know the state is in a precarious financial position. And there has been discussion in the past that pensions might get passed back to the board. So the board needs to be thinking proactively about what they would do if pensions got turned back to school boards, and how they would maintain the caliber while taking on that pension burden.
Thank you. Our next question, which we'll start with Christine, is what should the district's response be, if any, to District 86 proposed changes to the math and science curriculums?
So D181 has already stated that they are not going to change their curriculum. And D86 right now is proceeding with their change in curriculum. I think that D181 needs to allow, once D86 actually changes it, find out what the changes are, but then meet with D86 and let them know that, and as a parent, I don't want to have to be having my child go and take an interim class over the summer in order to be able to get into a certain math class at the high school. So once the final decisions are all made, there needs to be some compromise in figuring out how can we make this work best for students and families. Summer is summer. It should not be a time to be trying to make up something so that you can go into a certain class when you get to the high school. D181 has made it clear that they want to keep their curriculum as is. D86 needs to work with who's feeding into their program.
Thank you. And now we'll do the same question for Margie.
D181 has, our Assistant Superintendent of Learning did send a letter to the D86 community to tell them that we did not support the change in the curriculum. I trust our experts. They do not see that there's any evidence-based data out there that shows that students do better in the proposed program that D86 is planning to implement, and I trust that knowledge base. I'm personally I'm not in favor of the changes at D86. I think it hurts students, particularly students who are just below that average or above the average mark. So I don't see where this is going to help be an advantage for any student. I support D181's position, and I am hopeful that D86 will see the light and not implement this program.
Thank you. All right, question 5, which will go to Margie. How should a board member represent the community when the community is divided on an issue? And how should that community input be balanced with recommendations from the administration?
So I think the most important thing for a board to do is to listen to their constituents. And that's actually one area that I think that our district really needs to improve upon. I think we pay lip service to listening, but I don't think we do it. I think we communicate very well, and then there's a difference between communicating, which I look at as distributing brochures and putting out FAQs and newsletters, but listening is very different. And back in the fall, I called a special meeting specifically so that the board would listen and the administration would listen to our constituents. One special meeting turned into 3, and we listened to collectively probably 5 or 6 hours of citizens' concerns over the opening plan, which was to open full-time and in-person. And ultimately, those discussions led to the board of voting to approve a hybrid model. And the hybrid model has proved successful. Our students academically, our students' test scores are above where they were at this time last year. And our kids have stayed, most importantly, our kids and teachers have stayed safe. They've had continuity of lessons. They've had continuity, continual 5-day a week in school experiences. And I think that's helped their social emotional learning as well as their academics.
Thank you. And the same question now to Christine.
Can you repeat it, please, before?
Sure. How should a board member represent the community when the community is divided on an issue? And how should community input be balanced with recommendations from the administration?
So I think a board member needs to balance everything that they hear from community members. You will never please every single community member all the time in very difficult situations. But the goal is to balance and find as much ground where everybody's needs get met. In terms of communication, I don't think the district has been doing a good job. In the strategic plan from 2016, I think it was, that was one of the recommendations for the strategic plan, was to work on communication. The district, no one knew what was happening back in March, and a better job could have been done. Hindsight is 2020 to say what the district should have done. However, once we got to the end of the school year, we knew that the next school year was going to be different. We didn't know how, but we knew it was going to be different. And I think for parents, anxiety level was high. And part of that came from the lack of communication from the district. Nothing was communicated about what would happen during the summer. Parents weren't asked what they would be comfortable with, how would they be able to help out. We have a very resourceful community, and we didn't capitalize on who we have in the community to help strategically think through how to create the school year.
Thank you. Our final question, we'll start with Christine. What is the single most important thing the board can do in the next 2 years to benefit students?
The single most important thing that the board can do is communicate with parents and then assess where the kids' academic gaps are. Parents, the tests will tell them part of it, but they also need to talk to the parents to find out what parents felt their children lacked over the last year of their educational system. For some, it's going to be the core classes. For others, it's just going to be having that time with their friends together. For some, families are struggling. Some families have taken a huge financial hit, and so the family itself is struggling. We have to look at the whole child and the whole family right now for the next 2 years and focus on healing everybody so that we can get back to the caliber of the district that we know we are, and then stay there.
Thank you. And same question to Margie.
So I think the next 2 years are going to be really critical. And I think we're going to have to remain agile and flexible. I think that we may have to reduce some of our standards. We will have to listen to the whole child and really focus on their well-being and their health, both mental health and physical health. So keeping those mitigation factors in place for the next several years is going to be critical. Making sure that we have mental health resources and additional social workers where needed, or additional training, that's also going to be important. And we can't forget about our teachers. I mean, our teachers have gone through a difficult time too. And we have to make sure that our teachers are, that we are taking care of our teachers, that we're making sure they understand that their health is at the forefront of our decision making, and that we want to go back to school safely, but knowing that getting back to normal might take some time. And I think we're all just going to have to be patient and understand that it's a process, and that we have to go through, and we just have to make sure we're doing it safely, and with the health and safety, mental health and physical health of our students and teachers at the forefront.
Thank you. Next, if you'll give me just a moment to adjust the timer. Next, we will go to our closing statements, and it is Margie's turn to go first. So whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and begin.
I've been on the board for 4 years, and during my time on the board, it's been an interesting 4 years. We have hired a new CSBO. We had a settlement of the HMS lawsuit, which then allowed us to break ground on the new Hinsdale Middle School. We engaged a new legal counsel. We negotiated an intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Hinsdale to build a parking deck. That was not an easy one to do, and it was very protracted, but we did get it done, and we have a safe parking deck that is also beautiful. We finalized the facilities master plan. We established a $2 million capital improvement budget. We hired a new superintendent, an assistant superintendent of learning, an executive director of special ed, and a new CFO when our other CSBO retired. I was on the negotiating team for the teachers, and we got a 4-year contract that was fair to the teachers and sustainable for the district. And I'm proud of those accomplishments, but there's still more work to be done, and I would like the support of the community so that I can help to advance those initiatives.
Thank you. And now, Christine, you're up for your closing statement.
I'm passionate about children and giving them the best opportunities. I want to see kids succeed. I believe I bring a unique perspective to the board. I'm living through this pandemic with children in the home. I have gotten children through D181, D86, and college, and I still have children in the home. So I know what parents are going through right now. My goal as a board member is to be fiscally responsible, data-driven, and curriculum-focused. I want to see these kids make up the gaps that they've had from the last year. I want to see us return to school safely, as quick as with the right mitigations in place. We all have the same goal to see all the children reach their maximum potential. And I believe I have the temperament and thoughtfulness to listen to the concerns of the community and to be able to work towards a consensus that meets the most needs. Our families benefited greatly from D181, and I'm at a point in my life where I can give back right now. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to take a minute to thank both of the candidates. I think we all know serving on the board is a significant time commitment. Running for the privilege to do that is a significant time commitment as well. So we appreciate their cooperation. Just wanted to remind everyone that we also have a District 86 Candidates Night video available on YouTube, and all of our election coverage is available on our website at www.thehinsdalean.com. Thank you all for joining us, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you for having us, Pam.
Yes, thank you.